Joining me now to discuss this and all the day's top stories is Sky News host James Morrow and also federal political reporter for the Daily Telegraph. James, this was a very big announcement in Canberra today. What's your view on how Peter Dutton has handled the announcement of the wording for the question that was made by the Prime Minister?
Well, look, I think so far he's handled it well. And, Peter Dutton has had to be very careful about how he manages this, because up until now, if he'd gone out too hard against it, the story would be the splits within the party room. But I'll tell you what, after that performance that Anthony Albanese gave today, which can only be summed up as emotional blackmail, with the emotion and the tears and everything else, if you don't vote for this, you're a bad person. People are going to feel bad. Forget about all the constitutional stuff. He has a very big target now that he can aim at and say, I'm sorry, we would love to help, but this model that you have put up is just simply too much. And, Greg Craven, constitutional scholar, big-time yes supporter, has said this is now, he said it's worse than he thought that the model was going to be. It's much bigger. It can give advice to the entire bureaucracy. It is potentially just sands in the wheels of government at every single level. I don't know how this thing practically gets up, because it sits outside the parliament, it sits outside the government, and it's going to have all of this power to advise proactively at every stage of the way. I just think that Albanese has gone well too far trying to avoid a fight with his Indigenous working group over this.
It is more ambitious than many people expected, and I just heard Michael Kroger speaking with Kieran Gilbert earlier on Sky News today, and he questioned whether the Voice would have the ability to stop Australia going to war, for example. Other legal experts have said, could it be caught up in High Court challenges for years? So there is this legal question of how much power the Voice would have. Would it just be to provide advice, or would it be able to stop legislation from going ahead?
Well, the question is here, Sharri, we've heard a few things today. Number one, proactive, that it can proactively jump in and hop in on issues of the day. So that's the one thing. Number two, Marcia Langton there in that clip that you played said, oh, well, nothing else. No one has listened to the advice before. So why would they listen to this? Well, we know that Anthony Albanese has said it would be a brave parliament that didn't listen to the Voice. So that tells you that there is an expectation that the Voice is listened to. And you just have to look at how a few court cases in New Zealand gave a very equivalent sort of body so much more power to divide New Zealand by race. I'm really worried that if this gets up here, the same thing is going to happen in Australia as it happened in New Zealand. And I don't know why we think we're different, that if you suddenly, have different groups for different races, that somehow things are going to be better here when it's never worked anywhere else in the world.
OK, look, I want to move on to another big story today. Chinese and Australian defence officials convened in Canberra. This was the first major meeting of defence officials since 2019. Is this a sign to you, James, that the AUKUS subs plan hasn't derailed efforts by both nations to try and improve relations under the new, well, not so new now, but under the Albanese government?
Yeah, look, as Churchill said, jaw is better than war. These talks are good that they're happening. And frankly, I don't think, I think China knew that AUKUS was happening, so there was no great surprise for them to get all outraged about. So, yeah, no, I think that's exactly correct about this, Sharri.